I know when.
That's what we said that.
So I'm going to call to order the July 8th meeting of the Woodstock Town Board. I'm going to run through a couple of resolutions, then we have presentation and a public hearing. You resolved to ratify the contract with the Communication Workers of America Local 1120 effective January 1st, 2025 through January 1st, 2027.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You resolved to hire the 2024 summer recreation personnel at salaries provided in the attached sheet.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Be resolved to authorize the highway superintendent to dispose of surplus equipment vehicle identification number IFM 5K8 AROHGC 14741.
Second.
This, yep, this is the, so if you've noticed, we have two, I think they're Ford Explorers, they're out in the parking lot, the white vehicles, one is used by maintenance and one is used by the building department. These are all the police cars, both of them have seen better days, but one of them has a transmission issue, the other had a different issue, and they put the good parts together. They've given up the highway department, the mechanics have given us one good car. We're gonna have to go out and we are looking for another car. At the next meeting, I might have a resolution to make a purchase there.
So you say it was a police car?
Well,
Two police
it
cars.
was, they were two old police cars that were adopted by building and maintenance.
Yeah, okay. I thought they normally had a regular rotation of, they get more periodic.
Police do, yes.
Okay,
We're waiting to get one on the road. But when that goes on the road, that replacement will go to the chief who's in need of a car.
I got you.
I mean, we sell these for that, what is the disposal process?
It varies depending on what it is. For a vehicle like this, he could either put it on auction international and we just take the best price. Or he may call around. I think the last time we got rid of vehicles, he called around to 3 or 4 different scrap yards and got different prices from them. Nice thing is they come and pick it up and it's easy.
And then do those funds go back toward the new vehicle?
They go back into the general fund and wherever we decide to put it. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Whereas Picnic Baskets LLC, 297 Tinker Street, Woodstock, New York, 12498 is in compliance with the alcohol beverage control law, section 64, subdivision 2, has notified this municipality of their intent to file application for a liquor license with New York State Liquor Authority. Whereas this property is currently in compliance with all local laws and does not have any violations at this time, therefore be it resolved to waive in this instance the 30-day period to review said application and consent to the issuing of the liquor license in the above named applicants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And whereas Meadow 2.0 LLC, 83 Mill Hill Road, Woodstock, New York, 12498 is in compliance with the alcohol beverage control law, section 64, subdivision 2A, has notified this municipality of intent to file application for a liquor license with the New York State Liquor Authority. And whereas this property is currently in compliance with all New York State laws and does not have any violations at this time, therefore be it resolved to waive. In this instance, the 30-day period to review said application and consent to the issuing of the liquor license in the above named applicants.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I have one more resolution that did not make it, actually, it made it to my copy, but it didn't get printed out. Be it resolved to amend resolution 124-2025 to read, to accept the retirement of Brian Chase as Deputy Highway Superintendent, Foreman, and Heavy Equipment Operator, effective July 18th, 2025. The difference is the date. The last one was June. He paperwork didn't go in, or
Okay,
he changed,
push
he
it
changed the dates. Yeah.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we have a presentation by Complete Streets. Grace, Howard, you're up.
That's it?
That's
You're up.
bad.
Okay.
Okay. Good deal.
So Chris, we're talking into this, right? And talking to you. Does it pick up okay?
Yeah, it'll pick up. It'll
Okay.
pick up fine.
Okay.
Well, where is the mic?
It's right here.
It's right
Is it
behind.
okay? This right here.
Is this okay?
That's fine.
It's
Okay.
okay?
It's better if you talk to the mic.
Yeah. Hi Chris, you might wanna. Feel like it's an angle group.
No, you're okay. Really, it picks up quite far.
I see.
Looks fine.
All right.
Um,
So this presentation is from the Complete Streets Committee.
yeah.
And for anybody who doesn't know what Complete Streets is, it's Complete Streets is both a policy and a design, planning. Vision. To help make the streets safer and better and more appealing to everybody who walks on them. So that includes, pedestrians, cyclists, seniors, families. Delivery trucks, people with disabilities. Virtually everybody that's here. So Complete Streets are for everyone.
We also just want to thank the town board for your support. Throughout the last few years since we've been working on Complete Streets. And also everybody who ran for town board, who was really open and supportive of the work that we're doing. And the mission, we've got a big mission ahead of us. So we look forward to continuing to work with the people coming on board for next year. But thank you to all of you.
So Complete Streets has some main goals. It improves street safety and comfort. It helps reduce the greenhouse gas emissions. It fosters connections to nature. And it supports healthy lifestyles. And
So-
as Howard pointed out, the town board adopted a Complete Streets policy to make Woodstock a Complete Streets town. And the goals of this are improving this accessibility and safety for pedestrians and cyclists, finding long-term parking and traffic solutions, aligning the town infrastructure projects with Complete Streets principles, and linking paths and trails locally, regionally, and statewide. One of the first projects that Complete Streets completed was a parking map that focuses on accessibility, parking, and traffic flow.
One thing we want to do here is have new signage created to help particularly visitors find our parking lots. So we find a lot of visitors doing U-turns and looking for that last parking spot on 212. We'd like to make the parking lots more visible and more accessible for everyone.
And that requires support of the town board in order to help us obtain that signage. So that's one of the things we're requesting today.
So we're also working on traffic flow investigations, seeing if there's a better way to flow traffic around the center of town. Obviously sidewalk upgrades are mandatory for this town, long overdue. We'll be talking to that throughout the presentation. And then we also think we can do a better job highlighting our crosswalks and painting the crosswalks, we live in an arts colony. Just anything we can do to make our crosswalks safer and more visible.
Yeah, one of our ideas is to have a contest to ask some of the local artists to suggest what we could use to paint the crosswalks so that they would be more visible and more
Or crosswalks, on the Millville and Tinker Street.
Village Green,
village green, yeah.
Yeah,
from that,
that's all the state.
yeah,
We have to talk to them about it, yeah. And we have to get a grant to do it, but,
but we have other things we can do to make the crosswalks more visible, but that's just one of the ideas.
right. So one of the first grants that we got was a grant for a traffic engineer. And the traffic engineer functions to be our liaison and the town's liaison with DOT. Because they talk the same language and we don't talk that language. So,
Right.
it's a way to make sure that we understand what DOT is doing and to make sure they understand what it is that we want in terms of complete streets. Another thing, that the traffic engineer is tasked with doing is specifying complete streets features to incorporate in the Tinker Street renovation. And later on in this presentation, we'll show you what some of those features are. The third thing that traffic engineer has done is design a bike pedestrian path to Bearsville. The original design of the Tinker Street renovation stopped at Shoemaker Lane. But that made no sense to us at all, and particularly in light of the library moving to Bearsville. So first we try to get a grant to get a path to go there. That grant was a federal grant that didn't go through. Then with Bill's help, we petitioned the commissioner of the DOT to extend the current Tinker Street project to Bearsville. And lo and behold, they said yes. So,
First they said no.
well, first they said no, yeah, but then they said yes. So that's where we are right now with that.
Right.
So, the traffic engineer that we have designed the path to go to Bearsville and how pedestrians and cyclists could use the side path.
Well, and the other enhancement too was the original DOT project was just gonna be sidewalks and adding bicycling the entire way. So
Yeah.
beside the extension, you also got bicycling
Exactly.
coming
Right.
into town.
That's a goal, because Bearsville Flats, it has one of our highest home densities in Woodstock. So it's not only for recreation, people jogging and cycling. You know, you can often drive on Tinker Street at night and you'll see people returning from their jobs in town, enjoying the day walking to those jobs. So it really is an essential part of our mission to create safety on Tinker Street for everyone using that stretch of road.
Okay, the next thing that we did was to get a grant from AARP. And that was to conduct walk audits. And the purpose of walk audits, we did a presentation on walk audits. The purpose of these walk audits was to assess both the comfort and the safety that people experienced when they were walking around town. The results of those walk audits were not particularly great. Okay, people did not feel comfortable and they did not feel safe.
Particularly damning for anyone trying to navigate town, anyone with disabilities.
Yeah.
Incredibly difficult, or a mother with a stroller, anybody trying to use any sort of wheel for transportation just wasn't gonna make it along Tinker Street and Tanner Brook Road in town.
So what we did subsequent to the walk audit was that we started collecting other kinds of data. So that data revealed the same problem that we experienced in the walk audit.
Yeah.
Okay, things are not particularly safe for pedestrians of any sort in town.
And you don't have to look too hard to see cars racing through crosswalks with people in those crosswalks and those kind of instances. It happens constantly.
So
Um,
then
yeah, so for the past 18 months, we've been working closely with our police department. They've been sharing accident reports with us. So we've now got a full 18 months of information about where accidents are happening and what's going on. And the first thing, so we look at it in two ways. One is what happens in town, in the center of town, and then what happens in the greater Woodstock area. And outside of town, on places like Xena and Wittenberg Road, We've had 39 cars going off the road. These cars have hit trees, utility poles, they've ended up in ditches, they've rolled over. This is a problem that most of the reports don't speak to speeding. But I've never lived in a town where so many cars are going off the road. And if you obey the speed limits, you're not going off the road, typically. So this is one problem we have is what we feel is a problem is speeding outside of town. We've had 30 cars connecting with deer, hit with deer hits, which again, I mean, we all have to drive carefully. This is just part of living in the country. It's just something really for us all to be aware of. And then we've had 108 crashes reported, 77 last year, and we're on trend to meet those numbers this year. So in total, 185 instances in town.
So what is the distinction between the red cars and the blue cars?
The year,
Or the year?
The year, yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. So we're just, and this year, so July and August last year represented 25% of the
the whole
incidents.
total,
Wow.
right.
So we know peak season. So obviously we're missing those 2 months for this year.
Sure. Right.
So we'll probably see this year's numbers trend up to match
Yeah.
what we saw this year.
So one of the things that our data gathering has revealed is the problem with speeding. The other thing is the problem at the intersection, because most of the accidents in town, as you will see, occur at intersections, okay? And a major problem with those intersections is that people can't see when they're coming out of the side streets. Okay, and it's because there are cars parked. California has a law where cars have to be 20 feet from an intersection to park. There's no parking spaces closer to 20 feet from an intersection.
And that includes where roads are painted, yeah, with yellow and red and highlighted for people not to park. It's illegal to park in those spots, like just above Maple Lane to run into Bread Alone. On the bridge, just to the west of Tanner and Brookwood.
But we feel it's called daylighting when cars are not obstructing the vision of the drivers who are trying to turn. So we really believe that daylighting would be a great solution
Yeah.
to a lot of the problems.
Yeah.
And we know that parking is sort of sacrosanct in town, but one of the reasons that we're looking at all of the parking spaces, how many parking spaces are there? There's
550.
550 parking spaces.
Between the road and the parking lots.
So just in the lots,
Just
and
in the lot.
in what we have on the map. I'd have to go back and double check, but mostly in the municipal lots.
So we feel like a lot of people don't know to get to the lots, don't know how to get to the lots, don't know how to use the lot. So that's one of the reasons that we want signage to direct people to the lots. And then we feel like we can ask DOT to evaluate the daylighting process.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if anybody has an experience trying to come out of Tannery Brook Road onto Tinker Street, but you can't see anything. I mean, and one of the reasons that DOT will not put a crosswalk there, which needs a crosswalk, they won't put a crosswalk there because they say the line of vision is obstructed. So if we didn't obstruct the line of vision, we might be able to have a safe crosswalk there.
Meanwhile, the line of vision in
Actually, I think it's the
Yeah.
line of vision of the road, not because the speed
Yeah.
is blocking it. It's because of the
What's
turn.
the line of
Turn here.
well, the line of vision is not good when you're coming up Mill Hill Road and turning into Tinker Street. And we had one test.
Horrible.
Yes, horrible.
Yeah, horrible.
So we feel there's other places for crosswalks. If that one can exist, there are other places with better vision,
I
visibility,
mean, we asked them to remove, there's that dual
which
crosswalk,
is terrible.
and we asked them to remove the lower one.
So when we see when we saw the first redesign for Tinker Street, that dual crosswalk was still in the plans. So we're hoping when we see a redesign, that dual crosswalk will be reconfigured. But you don't have to be hit hard. We had one person hit in the crosswalk on Rock City Road, and we had an e-bike cyclist hit coming out as a car pulled out of Playhouse Lane and just didn't see. And you know, obviously that car wasn't moving fast. But that guy is still hurting and still in pain and still has difficulty moving months after the accident. So it doesn't take a great deal of speed for things to go bad for people. So 34 accidents on this stretch of road, basically from 375 to Tannery Brook Road last year, and we're at 13 currently this year.
So now some additional recommendations that we've made based upon the walk audits and the data gathering is that Woodstock really needs to address accessibility and safety for people with disabilities. Do you want to read
Yeah.
the
So
quote?
this is a letter the town board received in May of this year. My friend Lori and I visited Woodstock this past Monday. She uses a wheelchair and we were shocked to see how poorly the sidewalks and curb cuts were maintained. It was nearly impossible to go anywhere or do anything. I imagine improving Woodstock's accessibility would benefit everyone, all pedestrians, including people using strollers and canes, not just those using wheelchairs. And, you know, we've walked in town with Carol Anderson, Diane Conti, and they basically can't access town west of their street. And we've been talking with Bill about coming up with a fix for that, because these people can't wait another 2 years for DOT to rebuild Tinker Street, for them to be able to get to the library, the police station, the town hall, Camo, apothecary, the liquor store. So this is something we really need addressed when we see DOT's redesign.
Right.
To talk a little bit about speeding and how vital it is to really work as a community to cut down on speeding. The risk of death at 32 miles an hour is 25%. At 42 miles an hour, it doubles to 50%. And this is over years of data, US nationwide. So when you're doing 40 and a 30 close to town, on Ohio Mountain Road, on Yerry Hill Road, on parts, I think, of Glasgow Turnpike, on Rock City Road, just think about that. You know, it may seem safe to be doing 40, but you're really putting people in jeopardy who are outside of the vehicle. So vehicle occupants have got a list. You've got reinforced safety cages, seat belts, airbags, head restraints, crumple zones, anti-lock brakes, electronic stability, traction control. You're going to be fine if you hit a pedestrian or a cyclist. But for those pedestrians and cyclists, they have nothing. You know, maybe they bought a new helmet. Maybe they're wearing gloves or knee pads. But really, they have nothing to protect them if you decide that 40 is okay in a 30-mile-an-hour zone. So this is something we really want to focus on. And we're working now with our highway supervisor, Donnie. He's turning over the reports to us.
Yeah.
And so when we come to our next meeting, I think we'll have a lot more data and information on speeding around town.
Howard, can I make one comment on
Yeah.
that last slide?
Sure.
Those statistics are for, those are for middle-aged adults. And those statistics are much worse. The survivability rates are much lower for children and they're much lower for seniors.
Great point. Thanks.
And this town, needless to say, is heavily senior.
Yeah.
Well,
yourself.
Let's also just speak to this graph a little bit beyond 40 miles an hour. 50 miles an hour, you go to 75% risk of death. 58 miles an hour, only 8 miles an hour faster, it goes up to 90%. So just think about that, and just think about how you're seeing those cars flying around town and what impact that has. And we've seen too many hit and runs in Ulster County over the last 18 months. You know, yeah, this is where we're at. Higher speed also reduce a driver's field of vision dramatically. You know, it goes from 20 miles an hour, you have a wide view. At 40 miles an hour, you're seeing much less. So again, another reason for people to slow down. Braking at 20 miles an hour, most cars should stop it in 63 feet. At 40 miles an hour, it's 164 feet. So just, that little bit extra, 40 miles an hour doesn't always seem fast. Takes a lot longer to stop.
Okay, we also want to point out how difficult it is to get the speed limit reduced. Okay, it's a very complicated and complex process, and for towns that are our size, it's almost impossible. I mean, it really, you know how difficult it is, Bill. It just,
There is no law in New York State that will allow Woodstock to have the same 25-mile-an-hour speed limit as Kingston, Albany, New York City, and towns that are what they call suburban towns within 20 miles of those cities.
right.
So we would like to think that working going forward, we can really make Woodstock's voice heard together with other Ulster County towns and municipalities. So that we can have that same benefit of a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
And we believe that our representatives in Senate, in the state Senate and Assembly are in support of this. So, we have a leg up, but we have to move more.
So we're actively working with the town and DOT, New York State DOT, on the Tink Street renovation project. We'll be meeting with the design manager shortly, and hopefully hopefully that's a positive meeting moving in the right direction. This past year, we've been collaborating with Hurley and that town supervisor and Complete Streets team.
The safety team, yes.
Safety team on a feasibility study to find a safe path from Village Green through West Hurley, through the Hannaford Plaza, to 28 and the Shelburne Trail. We just think that's a win-win, whether it's a mix of trail and road, because we know 375 isn't just a place you can look to for safety.
And the Hurley Plaza is in West Hurley is a major
Yeah.
shopping area for Woodstock. So we think they're, two towns that are one town in terms of how they function. So we're trying to make that collaboration more effective.
So we can get people safely to Chestnut Hill Road. We could have it clearly marked for people to know how to go Chestnut Hill, Witch Tree, come out by Hannaford's Plaza. And then there's a little trail you can go to the Wall Street extension. So we can have that mapped out so people know. And it could be a little mix of trail and road. But we've got to get people safely to and from Chestnut Hill Road.
Yeah.
We're also examining safety solutions, and we'll be talking to Tannery Brook and Rock City Road and Mill Street.
Okay.
What do you mean you'll be talking?
In this presentation.
You'll be talking about it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Okay, when we're talking with DOT about the renovation project on Tinker Street, there are certain complete street solutions that we really are urging them to incorporate, and we do not know yet whether or not it has been incorporated in the designs for the renovation. Some of these solutions include things that are bump outs. Okay, so what a bump out does is it makes an area for a pedestrian to be safely, it shortens the distance that a pedestrian has to walk on the street to get from one side of the street to the other. And it also
It walks you to the outer edge of the
outer
car.
edge. Right.
So you're not entering the road at the passenger side of the car, you're entering the road at the driver's side of the car. So that bump out comes around the front of the park car, let's say, and that's where, and so you have a shorter crosswalk to the other side. You see them all over.
Well, the other advantage is a car can't park there.
That's true, and
Exactly.
that increases the sight line
Right.
for other
Exactly.
people,
So
right?
something like on the bridge, touch of the, by Tanner Brook Road, by Maple Lane, this would be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, another solution in the complete streets armorarium is raised crosswalks. Okay, we have crosswalks now, but I just came back from Ireland and all the crosswalks are raised everywhere. Just, it's not high, but it serves two purposes. It slows traffic in a congested area in town, and it makes the pedestrian much more visible.
And you have to, it's well documented, the States has the highest cars as a percentile. Most people are driving in these high SUVs, far more than in in a lot of countries around the world. So again, that's another reason that like, particularly, anybody crossing like this person in a wheelchair, to be more visible in these crosswalks.
Sometimes what they do is to make the crosswalk a different material. So you'll have asphalt on the street and the crosswalk will be brick, for example. So. Or we could have the crosswalk painted something beautiful.
So this is just an image, this is not anything that we've seen as a design for Tinker Street, but it's an idea of how a shared pedestrian bike path could look. Heading out towards to Bearsville, serving the new library, the Bearsville Center. And we talked about it going around the corner to the Bearsville Post Office. So that would provide so much more safety than what we have currently. And if that means that the travel lanes are a little bit narrower, that's also part of complete streets. Because a narrower travel lane and a reduced, we may be able to reduce the speed in this slightly, but a narrower travel lane also just gives people the idea to drive more carefully and cautiously and slower.
Yeah, and the Tinker Street out to Bearsville can be a straightaway. Everybody, as soon as they get beyond the post office, all of a sudden the speed picks up.
Yep.
And if we have pedestrians, which we will have more of now that the library has moved, we need to be more careful on that section of road.
Yeah, and we like to think there could be maybe a shared bike service from Woodstock to the new library, like an e-bike. So could there be something similar down the road, like what City Bike does in the city, so people can take e-bikes out to the new library?
I gotta tell you, I've experienced shared pedestrian and bike paths, and I don't like them. They're dangerous. I mean, bikes come up behind you, you can't hear them.
Yeah,
All right, we focus on.
so Tannery Brook Road has been on our radar for a while. 2 years ago, DPW uncovered what used to be a sidewalk. There's a curb there laid. And we really feel it's important. This is a heavily trafficked pedestrian and vehicle road. You saw these photographs actually was just taken yesterday. And you can see all these students walking.
Well, they're going
To the
to
water.
go swimming, yeah.
So we really want to look at ways that we can improve Tannery Brook Road, and how we can get funding to reinstate this sidewalk. So this sidewalk runs from the Tannery Brook lot down to Pine Grove Street. But we also have to address what happens between
Pine Grove.
parking lot and Tinker Street. That's a disaster in its own right. It's extremely narrow and slopes into the road with no curb. And then the lower part from Pine Grove to Millstream has no sidewalk.
And we don't know whether or not this idea will work or not, but we need to get a traffic engineer to look at whether or not changing the circulation of traffic would actually make it possible to have, if traffic went one way, for example, up part of Tannery Brook Road, Pine Grove, and out to Tinker Street, it might be possible then to have a wide shoulder so that people could walk or even have a sidewalk at that point in time.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to have a traffic study to make sure that that's viable and would work for people. But that's one of the possibilities. So we're trying to consider everything that we can to make it safer.
Trail connectivity is also a big part of what we do and work on. So we're looking to reinstate old trails together with identifying new ones to connect neighborhoods. We have a new trail currently being developed with Dave Holden and Jim Bogner and Mary Smith in Bearsville. So it runs, oops, sorry, my bad. Runs next to Rickford's Field, past the dog park, and then along the Sawkill to the end of town property and back. And then there's plans that we could hopefully extend that.
And it's
connect-
all on town property. And
Yeah,
if we end up with a bike pedestrian path out to Bearsville, it could be connected to that.
correct. So we're working on a digital map of all paths and trails in Woodstock. and finding ways to expand and improve existing network of trails within the town and connect our network of trails to other networks.
Oh, in line with connecting our trails to other networks is the work that we're doing with Hurley on a connecting path to the Ashokan Rail Trail. And then Complete Streets supports. And we know that you got a charming presentation about the Catskill Mountain Railroad, but that proposal does not really fall in line with Complete Streets principles. Okay, that proposal.
Share
Hmm?
it. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk about
We'll
it.
talk about that.
Yeah,
Okay, so first we wanted to tell you that Complete Streets is in favor of a trail on what's called the undesignated part of the corridor. And the history of this trail connectivity is that the original legislative policy requires trail connectivity on the UND corridor. So you can't have the rail and no trail. And based upon the policy that was established, I think in 2014,
2015.
2015. Okay. The Woodstock Town Board, you guys, okay, approved a resolution number 96 in 2024 to preserve and realize trail connectivity between the city of Kingston and the Ashokan Rail Trail. Also, the Ulster County Traffic Safety Board approved a resolution recommending that the Ulster County utilize county-owned UND corridor to provide safe and protected AASHTO compliant non-motorized transportation from the city of Kingston to Basin Road and Boyceville. And what that means is that all of the dangers that exist on Route 28 for bicycle riders and pedestrians could be mitigated by having an off-road trail. Okay,
so for anybody who doesn't know what we're discussing, there's the 1.7 miles of what used to be rail, is having that as the trail, which runs from Basin Road, which is in Woodstock, to just behind Hickory Barbecue. And the counter proposal is for the Catskill Mountain Railroad to end just across 28A from Hickory Barbecue and have the station built there. And then have the Ashokan Rail Trail extend east
there,
to connect with the train depot, so people can take the train to the Ashokan Rail Trail. Just have it connect on
at a different
property,
location, right?
close to where it currently ends.
So come again, so they presented to us saying, bring it.
They want to bring so they want to bring the trail, they want to bring the train from Hickory Barbecue, where it currently ends, to Basin Road, and have a station built on Woodstock town property.
Right, and then your point is, you really can't, because it's not wide enough to have a pedestrian bike
When
and
you,
also the railroad.
Exactly.
okay, when you really look at that stretch, and we should maybe walk it.
We should,
Okay,
because we sent men to the moon, I can't believe we can't do both.
well, wait till you see it.
Well, yes, we-
Wait till you see
I
it.
have. I have.
You want to-
do both, Bill, but it would cost so much money. I mean, would it be?
But that's what we're here to argue about
Okay.
tonight.
But well, except in a way, we kind of are, I think, I mean, that's part of why I believe Complete Streets is here, is to make sure that everybody is fully aware. We saw the Catskill Mountain Railroad
We should do
presentation.
another presentation, Kevin wants to come back.
Kevin's gonna come back and talk.
Send it back and do
And
that.
and
Yeah.
talk to
But we
them.
just,
We very much like to do that.
But I think
Yeah.
I would love to have I would love to walk it, because because we have to see how much construction do we have to do? If the current land, if it's only wide enough for the railroad, how much construction and where would it go to make the trail and the pedestrian bike trail still be able to
Yes.
be there? We would need to have some kind of a design, and once the railroad builds extends their rail 1.7 miles, they're not gonna care if pedestrian bike is there, so somehow, in my opinion, is somehow we have to have some
Plan.
some design plan and guarantee, because once we tell the railroad, oh, you can do it, and they're done, they're out
Well,
of here.
just
and
let's back up a little bit.
Yes, okay.
Let's be clear, we have no say in it, this is county. So the county would have to come up with a plan or approve a plan. That would include both.
but
But down Woodstock doesn't get any vote.
except for the fact that the town of Woodstock is where the railroad wants to put the station.
That's the one little piece of property at the end.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is
The,
the town of
the
Woodstock.
problem, the tight spot is not in the town of Woodstock,
Right, but
and we get no vote.
you heard me speak out loud against Terramore and it was insolvency. We as the town of Woodstock can speak up.
I'm just being clear, we don't get a vote.
We may not get a vote, but we have a voice.
We can have a voice.
We can have a voice and I believe we should use our voice.
Yeah. Well, one thing I think that appealed to you in the presentation was the shuttle bus into Woodstock to bring visitors right into the heart of Woodstock. That shuttle bus can just as easily run from
Old
around,
Everett.
and that shuttle bus will move a lot quicker. You know, that the riders would have had the experience of riding the train, and then they'll be brought into Woodstock at a higher.
So it's important to think about, that's my point. It's important to think about to
Sure.
try to achieve everything and have a plan to achieve everything before we let one piece go, no, they're up to the races. And use our voice, you know, we don't get.
And I don't imagine the county would do that without making sure. It's either gonna be, they're gonna come up with a plan, and it's either gonna be. I would assume a walking trail or both.
Yeah, well, we'd like to just.
If I might,
Go ahead.
if it would be okay.
I'm not
This
too
is-
much further into this, Kevin, you're gonna come back.
I can sum it up. I think you're exactly right. And Laura's point is exactly right as well. There is a process that's taking place at the county level, and they do ultimately have the say on this. And there was a special committee that was formed at the beginning of 2024. And that committee has done its work, it makes policy recommendations. The chair of the legislature just recently has called for additional engineering and fact finding. To sort out exactly these kind of nitty gritty issues. They felt that, you know, many legislators felt like they needed more information to make an informed decision. And that request for quotes just went out 10 days ago. So there is a process in place and
Thank you.
people can come to the county.
So,
Yeah.
so can we just spend a second
Yes.
just to talk to the benefits that we feel is
Yes.
why Complete Streets is having.
Supporting it. Yeah.
So having an opinion and supporting this, the trail benefits connects the Ashoka Rail Trail to Hurley, Kingston, the county trail network, and ultimately the Empire State Trail. So you could hopefully ride a bike from Bearsville to Buffalo,
Yep.
or New York City. It increases sustainable light footprint tourism and economic development that supports running, biking, hiking, and interaction with nature. It promotes safe, non-motorized travel along the dangerous Route 28 corridor.
And we know how dangerous that corridor is. Okay, I mean, someone is,
It'll-
I think, still
If
in
you
Westchester
remember the
Hospital as a result of
statistics-
recent act.
The statistics that Howard showed you before. On Route 28, the 85th percentile, that's 85% of vehicles. Traveling between Basin Road and Kingston is 56 miles an hour. So
You don't want to be.
think about those survivability.
Yeah, you don't want to be on that road.
It eliminates increased diesel, including biodiesel, particulate pollution emissions from locomotives. It avoids extensive blasting required to widen rock cuts. This is where the expense comes in. Side by side, rail with trail in the highly constrained, undesignated section of the corridor is not feasible or affordable. We're looking at 4 to 6 times the cost of trail only. And much of there's a high fill section, so the train runs along a high fill section, which is very steeply banked with just the trail on the track on the top. Much of the high fill section of this portion of the corridor is bounded on either side by significant New York State protected wetlands, which connect into the Bluestone Wild Forest. So any width that's added there with
It's
high
going into
fill
wetland.
is going into it. So the wetlands are, and how you navigate that high fill section and the blasting through the rock cut is something. And so,
Howard also got information on what it would be like to have a trail next to the rail in this narrow corridor in terms of noise. and the impact of noise, and the impact on the hearing, and the people who are walking and riding there.
Yeah. You wouldn't want to be in that locked up when the train comes through. You know, it could be extremely loud and overwhelming. So complete street solutions, education, working within the community and getting our campaigning, getting the word out. Traffic engineering, modify our infrastructure, reducing speed limits, redesign traffic flow.
And
And
enforcement, yeah,
You know, parking and speeding, and, you know, we're working closely with the police, and we hopefully will be talking to that
yes.
and in the future.
And we say in general, slow down.
Yeah,
And that's a
Okay.
complete street message.
Thank you for your presentation,
any questions?
as we'll be meeting next Wednesday, I believe, at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock.
Absolutely.
DOT, yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Do you know which time it is? 9 o'clock?
He's gonna love this.
Let's see, let's see.
Yeah, good.
10.
Yeah, okay, so my question is, so complete street solutions, and you've gone through all of these things. Is there something specifically you need from the town board? And the other part two of that question is. I mean, here we are, July, come September, we're working on the budget for 2026.
Mhm.
And are there things that you, and congratulations on getting a grant or two, not always easy to do, but
Mhm.
excellent that you've done that to be able to move things forward. But is there any specific budget, for example, that you're hoping for in 2026 to help achieve your goals, or anything that you need the town board?
Sure.
From the town board?
One of the things is we need budget for signage when we're talking about making parking lots more accessible and therefore reducing the need for on-street parking.
Right, and at what point might you have the estimate of what you're hoping for?
Don't you have that, Howard?
We understand it's close to 5,000 to have the signs made. We're trying to get, we were trying to work to have the design part done without.
Without charge, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're hoping in the 2026 budget to have $5,000 to create signs?
Well, we were hoping that we get some of it from this year's budget to start.
Well,
Nothing in it?
uh,
No, Bill says no, it's.
Is it
Well,
in there for
usually a
committees?
bucket- we usually have a bucket of money
Committees, right,
committees share, so how is that bucket of money doing?
It's kind of.
So that.
it may be something, yeah.
So we maybe.
the one, yeah.
Okay.
One thing we really need help on, I think, we know that Tinker Street is gonna be rebuilt somehow. And that project we know is increased dramatically in cost, without seeing the design. So putting that to one side, because that's a state road, I think we could really use the town's help to look for ideas of how we can look at Tannery Brook Road.
Is the county
Yeah.
involved in that?
That's the.
It is a town's road, but, we need help to think, we need an engineer to look at that, so does that come?
I would
Yeah,
think
so
the
we need to
county
get,
should.
we need to get a grant.
But the reason why Woodstock would care is because if Tannery Brook, if that stretch of Tannery Brook that goes from Pine Grove Street to 212. If the county were to agree to make that one way, then the town roads would be used for where else the cars are going. If for some reason, because it is very narrow, and you saw the picture.
No, I was just saying.
You wouldn't want
engineer-
to spend engineering.
Engineer should be on account.
So we just have to.
Guys,
work
we-
with
It may be, it may be, but the idea is, in the event Tannery Brook if that stretch were made one way, then it would involve other Woodstock streets, because then cars would be, you'd have to make a loop, and which other streets would be.
Speak to those other.
Could we ask- could we ask-
Yeah.
I'm
Can
nobody's
we
gonna be
ask-
happy with that either.
But we have, we have to choose from the choices.
Can we
So-
ask the town support to look to
To look at,
to have DPW look at it?
Right.
You know, to say that to raise.
Which DP?
County.
We're talking about the county.
County,
Yeah, talk to Jeff Collins.
okay. So we
How
can
do you
do
have
that,
to?
but we'd like to know that we have the
the
support.
support of the
when
county
we
board
do it, so we
in order to do
going
that,
down the
yeah.
road.
Just,
You know, if this seems like a good idea to you all.
I don't know if it is, I mean, I wouldn't support the idea, I'd support talking about it.
Talking,
Right.
that's
Well,
what.
it's good,
Yeah.
it's good to figure out a design,
into-
of what is the best we can
Yeah, it
do.
might be terrible.
Yeah,
And my
yeah,
too.
exactly, but because we may look at, we may say, what's the best that can be done if we get the county to look into it? And then we have to look at the best that can be done and to say, is that better than what we have today?
Right.
We know what we have today, it has flaws.
So there's two things, there's the sidewalk on its own, and then there's a thought of, is there a better traffic flow? So look into it.
And are they related? I mean, is it necessary in order to
Just
get
one
a
more thing.
sidewalk
Yeah,
to change the traffic flow? We don't know, you know, I mean, we're not traffic engineers.
And I have a couple of questions as well. The DOT said yes to extending this to Bearsville. So what are the steps that happen next? Is there gonna be some,
Well, they said yes to study.
They
Just
said
like-
they said just incorporating the design.
Design.
we don't know
Don't
the,
have the money to construct it yet.
okay, so what does that mean as far as what we can expect next? And is there a time frame? And do you need help to help move that forward?
There are 3 required public meetings
Okay,
that are part of these projects. They did one in 2024,
before that.
2023.
2023 at the
2023.
community center. I
Yeah.
think that's the only one that's happened. So in this next phase, they will be coming back, and I'm guessing this upcoming meeting is in preparation for that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are meeting with Bill and Howard and I and Laura are meeting with the design team of DOT
And we just, this
in
first
order
meeting,
to tell us what their new design is. We are hoping that incorporates the ideas that we
Okay.
propose to them. We don't know.
will that be recorded so that other
No.
town board
No,
members
this is just-
can be
this- no.
updated?
now this is just, this is a meeting that we specifically call for because of what we have to navigate for safety
Okay,
and road safety. But Michael's here, and we would like to have a follow-up meeting where the entire design comes in. Because the
That
tree
includes
committee's
trees,
got,
yeah.
you know, trees already planned out,
Yeah.
they've already worked on
40
that.
trees.
So there's a lot more, we want to cover the safety aspect and making sure that we get an upgrade in safety. But then we also want to make sure that we work with the other committees in town. To have a full picture for when they present and then for us all to have a chance to speak. to
And
us.
it's safety and accessibility.
Okay.
Okay.
And then quick question about the speeding. So are the police familiar with the areas where they might use their resources to help reduce
Yeah,
the
it's a great
speeding?
question. So when we met with the police earlier this year, we highlighted 10 what we felt were hotspots.
Okay,
And we're starting to see those, like one is Rock City Road. Because of cars coming down that hill and the youth center is such a sensitive area. As it gets busier.
Have they had accidents there that you're aware?
Not that I'm aware of, but the cars certainly come down fast.
Okay.
So what we've done is we gave the police department 10 locations in town as a place to start. So we can see if our thoughts transfer to what the electronic signs pick up. And then, so that'll give us a point of understanding. And then from those 10, you know, it should then, I'm sure everybody in this town would like that sign in front of their driveway.
Right.
So, those signs, you know, have a lot of places to go. But we're gonna be tracking, the speeds and really, and I think next time we sit and present, speed will be very much a part. Maybe it's good news, maybe, you know, but, we don't see it.
I think one of the
So
things
that-
also that was revealed by the walk audits is not just the data, but the experience that people have walking around. Okay, and we're a tourist town, so that's a really important thing for our economy. And the
So we do
experience,
wanna move this forward, because we still have a public hearing.
Yeah.
Village, do you have any other
no,
questions?
but thank
Dennis, do
you.
you have any
Thank you.
questions?
okay,
I just want to thank you guys for doing the work that you're doing. It's personally important to me. I really appreciate your focus on safety. I would hope that you will continue to focus on sidewalks and speed. And that you will do that within the hamlet where people are parking and walking. It is desperately needed.
Yeah, thank you.
So thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
man.
I'd like to thank you as
Can
well.
I ask
Thank you.
what you sent me then?
I'll give you a copy.
I-
And I'm also,
Okay,
we're
I'm gonna
gonna,
get a copy. This
we're
is
also
perfect.
gonna send
Great, you're gonna-
electronically, we'll send a
that's
presentation.
what-
They'll send me the color
Yeah,
copy to
but
put on the
I also
website.
wanna do wanna thank the Complete Streets Committee, because I've been.
Stop sharing.
I've been informally and formally liaison since the creation of the Complete Streets
Yes.
Committee. I have nonstop been an advocate.
Laura, thank
So-
you.
So much appreciated.
Oh.
Thank you. But so much appreciated in all that you do, all the focus, and it is so important, so.
Thank you for all your
And
time.
I'll continue to help any way.
Thank you guys much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Grace, make sure you send.
We have a public hearing for the franchise agreement with Charter Communications.
At a prior meeting, the town board resolved to hold a public hearing on the franchise agreement with Charter Communications for today's date, 7/8/2025. All persons will now be heard.
And we'll jump up to once. Anybody got any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, thank you. I contacted Melanie, who was kind enough to locate the franchise agreement and to give it a name that was meaningful on the website, so I was able to look at it. And I didn't get all the way through it. I understand that this only comes up every decade, right? The last one was 2012, I think, right? So, in that sense, it's sort of a big deal. Like I say, I didn't read the whole thing, and it's not a big issue for me, but I know for some people it is a big issue. And you announced the public hearing June 10th. There was a notice in the paper. And I don't know if the people here came out tonight for this public hearing. I don't know if the people who really care about the franchise agreement know about it and came out tonight. I'd just like to ask a couple questions. Who wrote that?
That's their standard agreement, they did.
Charter Communications wrote, okay. Who from the town is involved to get the best possible deal for the people of Woodstock?
On board.
I didn't have anything to do with it.
Do we
Yeah,
have,
the agreement though.
Yes, I had nothing to do, nothing, absolutely nothing.
do we have somebody, an advocate who's knowledgeable about this, perhaps an attorney? Who's in there talking to them and negotiating and trying to get the best possible deal for the town?
No,
We don't. Could I ask that you not close the public hearing tonight?
I can tell you that we're not, if you look at the agenda, there's no resolution to adopt this.
Thank you.
And actually, just throw it out there now. It's not uncustomary to get something in return for doing this. And one of the things that. We talked about the possibility of them running a better line that didn't come up through the woods. And that was pretty expensive, they weren't too keen on that, and I said, okay, well, let's talk about. Redesigning the television studio, so that one's on the table right now.
I've heard all those things over the years, and like I say, I don't have a particular bone here, but I know a lot of people are concerned about it. So I'm hoping, like you said, you will not close it tonight, there's no resolution tonight. Could you please go through a process and get some people out who really care about it? And we should have an advocate, right? We should have somebody who,
And you have 5 up here,
okay, good,
thank you,
all
John.
right, thank you.
Anyone else? Dan?
I think still that you have to have somebody here recording
Okay.
the
Well,
town.
we're talking about the franchise agreement now, though, we're not talking about recording or anything else, so do you have any comments about the agreement? That's what the.
I want to talk
Okay.
about the
Okay.
illustration.
Anyone else have anything about the franchise agreement? Nobody. Okay, and I'm gonna recess to the call of the chair. And Jackie, you have public be heard?
Weston Blaylock.
John, one quick thing while this is coming up, as you read it, if you have any other thoughts, send it to us.
Okay, thank you. Well,
Thank you. Let me get my clock out, Weston, okay. so-
Does he need to be over here, Melanie, or can you pick him up from over here?
He's fine over there.
Okay.
So, it's around. Going to talk about keeping what's, I believe, the school open. Laura made a good point that the complete presentation, that yes, the town doesn't have a voice, so they have a voice. I hope that you raise your voice with a with a microphone. No, there is no microphone. So, I'm speaking out in favor of keeping Woodstock Elementary School open. The full-service community school may serve as a helpful model as it promotes collaborative partnerships among stakeholders like local government, parents, social organizations, and educators to provide the best education for school children. For example, the town is planning to bond for a $5 million youth center. Instead of building a new structure, why doesn't the town lease the Woodstock Elementary School facilities such as its meeting rooms, gym, and grounds during after school hours? The school district could then use the lease monies to keep the school. Grants and private donations to fund the further build out of the full service community school. Other initiatives might include tutors for homework and expanded learning opportunities for children and adults. The first step is really to pass that resolution. You don't have to do anything beyond that. Others in the community can go to different stakeholders like Family of Woodstock, SNOOTY, New Paltz, to expand the opportunities and try to get marshal support by the community behind the initiative. If we have to raise grants, if we have to get private donations, whatever it takes to keep that school open, because if it closes, we're just simply a bedroom community from New York City. We know that the average age of the community is 71, or 61. In 10 years, we'll all be gone, and won't be able to like questions. Thank you, Leslie.
Thanks, Mal.
Thanks.
Woodstock County Warriors. On behalf of Woodstockers United for Change. We've been at this for a while now. After years of bringing to light the severe environmental threats emanating from the illegal, unpermitted 200 truckload dump of contaminated construction debris at 10 Church Road in the Woodstock hamlet of Shady, Woodstockers United for Change was recently advised of a new move by Supervisor McKenna, instructing Butch Hoffman as building inspector and zoning officer to agree that the order to remedy violation notices, of which the property owner's guilt and liability had already been established in court, should be considered to be satisfied, since it complied with the faulty Plan E, the issuance of which was deemed in court to be illegitimate. When recently asked, Butch said the violation is active in the report and will remain on the property until documentation of satisfaction from the town engineer and accepted by the town supervisor and board is received. But the engineer's letter only refers to the fill violation being remediated and specifically excludes groundwater issues. So how can anyone say there is no continuing violation or solid waste law since the material still in the ground has been there illegally for 5 years? Does this town realize that the 10 Church Road owner has already been cited and is in default of the required compliance with Town Law 192-4? Just as you, Bill McKenna, are attempting to relieve them of any further liability or responsibility. So the next town supervisor has the perfect excuse to do nothing, right? Aren't you the same supervisor that signed the letter to Attorney General Letitia James, stating in part, and I quote exactly from that letter, "This issue has caused great concern in our community, in addition to potential impact to the immediate neighborhood's aquifer." You said. The material was brought in from the Corolla Saugerties site. Apparently you know that too. There is the potential to impact the town aquifer, Bill. That's what you sent a letter a year ago. And you're trying to close everything now so no one can remediate it. Is that right? This letter on Town of Woodstock letterhead dated 7/12/2024 CC'd Michelle Henchy and the DEC Commissioner, as if it wasn't official enough already. So although we should know better than to expect an answer, we have to ask. If you were willing to tell the top lawyers of the state of New York and the sitting senator that you are aware the dump consists of highly contaminated and known hazardous material.
Thank you, Vince.
From the Corolla Society site, why are you telling
Thank you,
Bush to
Vince.
make the problem go away? So none of us can be able to remediate it in the
Thank
future?
you, Vince.
Michael,
welcome,
please.
Bill.
Michael?
Yeah.
Michael?
Thank you. I'm gonna address the board. Do I just give these to Jackie? Or you can hand them out? There's one for Maria. Some of you may know, I've spent the past 7 years serving as an advocate for survivors of priest-child sexual abuse. The efforts of advocates like myself and others have forced 40 Catholic diocese bankruptcies and hundreds of millions, if not billions, paid out to settle priest abuse claims. Boy Scouts are another large organization that has gone through a similar settlement process, and I'm sure there will be many more. One of the main failings of the Catholic Church and the Boy Scouts and others was the failure to disclose the presence of known pedophiles to the parents of the children who came in contact with them. To that, I have prepared a draft document for the town board to review and to ultimately mail and email to every parent whose child may come into contact with a registered violent sex offender currently employed by the town of Woodstock. I have also included the public documents of this individual with his name redacted. I recommend the board make a statement to the press regarding this individual and postings to social media. Years ago, when my children were in school, we would occasionally receive either a postcard or later on email informing us that a registered sex offender was residing within a few miles of us. The person was not identified, but their location was given. I'm requesting that the town board act tonight to inform any parent whose child may be using town-owned facilities or programs that they may come in contact with a pedophile and violent registered sex offender who is employed by the town.
Thank you,
Thank
Michael.
you.
John Ledgewood. That's next time, make sure you sign up in the town meeting. Thank you.
I want to talk a little about the surplus of the town of Woodstock. This is an issue I brought up a number of times. I handed out this chart or tracked numbers for the last 10 years. And in 2024, the number comes to $3.2 million surplus for the town of Woodstock, which was 42% of our revenue. At the end of each year, some towns have a deficit, some towns have a surplus. It's called the unassigned fund balance. So on this chart, the unassigned fund balance is the surplus. Woodstock has a trend of surpluses. That's better than a deficit, we can all agree. But the trend is for surpluses to grow each year. The annual surplus grows by $300,000 each year. 3.2 million left over at the end of 2024. Again, that was 42% of our revenue was surplus. $2 million surplus the year before, 2023. While taxes are raised each year, roughly $200,000. All of the tax increase last year was surplus. I pointed out last November at the public hearing, the budget public hearing, that the tax increase for 2025 was unnecessary. And the board went ahead and voted for it. So there's a story here. Revenue is growing, taxes are growing. It's not clear what the plan is. We don't hear the plan when we come to the town board. And when we read the newspaper. So I'm asking the whole town board, please, you're going through a budget process in the next few months, I think. Please have some discussions here. Let us know what the plan is. If you're raising taxes, please say something about that. Let us know why you're raising taxes when you have 3.2 million left over from last year. And what is the plan for this money in the future? We don't hear anything. One of my requests is please have discussions here at the town board. Don't just do resolutions, publicly heard, meeting adjourned, go home. Spend some time, talk amongst yourselves, and we'll sit and listen. And we'd like to hear what it is you're thinking. Please share with us. Thank you.
Yeah.
Danny, John, last one.
Yeah.
Sarah, we're done with public. Okay.
Because we're going into executive.
You're going to sign up that just now. You should have signed up when you were here.
We're going to executive
Just sign
session.
up.
Please, Sarah, we'll do it next week.
Sarah, sit down.
Well, you've been avoiding my calls, right? And my texts, you told me, oh, Bill, it's been weeks, come on.
Go ahead, Danny, please.
So. Okay,
Mhm.
so, all right, I'll see you after.
I don't understand still why is it that now that he's selling for so much surplus that you have for the police station, that we cannot do anything there. I mean, the town receives from a franchise fee from the Spectrum at least $100,000 a year, which goes to the general fund. And the TV station is being run by Ellen and myself, and we don't get a penny. And today we had a problem with, every time we have problems with electric issues there, today I spent like 2 hours trying to set up the whole thing because with the electric, everything came down. And so I was there for a couple of hours, trying to bring it up. And I was successful eventually, but it took me 2 hours. And so I don't understand with $100,000 that is supposed to be for the TV station, I don't know where is it going. And I think that's really very, very sad. The other thing is like, I don't see anything here. People that are trying to watch the town board meeting, it's only us. Because the people that are at their houses, what are they watching? That's very difficult to watch anything there. I think besides that, you can have somebody like we had before, to pay him or her to videotape it, make it DVD, and we can put it at the TV station and everybody can watch it for a whole week. What happened? Because otherwise, it's like, I don't know I don't see anything there,
Thank you, Fanny.
Okay.
That's right. You make a motion to go into executive session.
Say one thing that I meant to say at the last meeting about the police and those body cams. Just to let people know, the body cams are in, the software is up, and the police, the sergeants and the chief, and I was in there when it happened, had training. So they still need to train all of the officers, and I don't have a schedule yet of when all the officers will be using them. But the system is working and they have the equipment and they have the docking stations so they can download video. So I just want to let people know that the body cams are in and operational. And I'll have to check on what the status is of the training, but the training has begun.
So thank you all.
I'm hoping, like.
Make a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of talking about employees in the maintenance department.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Like the street.
Thank you. My last comment, that you're alive.
I'll forward that to you later.